Imagine waking up in the middle of the ocean and realizing there is no land in any direction. No engine sound, no radio, no sign of help, just endless blue water stretching beyond the horizon. Now imagine that this moment doesn't end in a few hours or even a few days, but continues for more than a year. This is not fiction. This is the real survival story of José Salvador Alvarenga, a fisherman who spent 438 days drifting alone across the Pacific Ocean. José Salvador Alvarenga was not an adventurer or a trained survival expert. He was a fisherman by profession, born in El Salvador and later working along the coast of Mexico. Fishing was how he earned money and survived. By 2012, he had spent years at sea and had faced storms before, which made him confident that he could handle rough conditions. In November of that year, weather forecasts warned about unstable seas, but storms were common and many fishermen chose to ignore them. José made the same decision. He went out on a small fiberglass fishing boat, taking along a young and inexperienced crewmate named Ezequiel Cordoba. The plan was simple: go out, catch fish, and return the same day. At first, nothing seemed unusual. The sea was calm and the boat moved steadily away from the coast. But the Pacific Ocean changes without warning. The wind suddenly grew stronger, waves began rising, and dark clouds covered the sky. Within hours, the storm fully hit them. Rain poured heavily, waves crashed violently against the boat, and water flooded the deck. Fishing equipment was thrown around, and visibility dropped almost to zero. Then, in the middle of the chaos, the engine stopped working. Shortly after that, the radio failed as well. In just a few minutes, José and Ezequiel lost their engine, communication, and any way to call for help. When the storm finally passed, they expected to see land nearby. Instead, there was nothing. No coastline, no boats, no direction. They were no longer fishing near Mexico. They were drifting freely in the open Pacific Ocean. At first, José believed rescue would come soon. Fishing boats often went missing and were usually found within a few days. But the Pacific Ocean is enormous, and a small boat floating without power is almost impossible to spot. Days passed, and no one came. Their food supplies ran out quickly, and fresh water became their biggest concern. To survive, José began catching fish with his bare hands. They ate everything raw: fish, jellyfish, and seabirds that landed on the boat. Whenever it rained, they collected rainwater in empty bottles. Rain became the difference between life and death, but rain didn't come regularly. During the day, the sun burned their skin, and at night, cold winds drained their energy. Sleep became short and uncomfortable, and fear never left their minds. As the weeks passed, the physical effects of survival began to show. Eating raw meat made Ezequiel sick. His body weakened and his mental state worsened. Fear and hopelessness slowly took control of him. Eventually, Ezequiel refused to eat at all. José tried to convince him, warning him that stopping would mean death, but despair had already won. One morning, after weeks adrift at sea, Ezequiel died quietly on the boat. José was forced to push his crewmate's body into the ocean. From that moment on, he was completely alone. Total isolation is something most humans are never prepared for. José now had no one to talk to, no human voice to hear, and no sense of time. Day after day, he drifted across an empty horizon. To protect his mind, he began talking to himself, to birds that landed on the boat, and sometimes to the ocean itself. Occasionally, ships appeared far in the distance. José screamed, waved pieces of cloth, and used every bit of strength he had to signal for help, but the ships never noticed him. Each failed attempt hurt more than hunger, and slowly, hope became something painful rather than comforting. To stay alive, José had to adapt. He caught turtles and drank their blood to stay hydrated. He killed seabirds and dried their meat under the sun so it would last longer. He learned how to survive storms by tying himself to the boat so waves wouldn't throw him into the sea. Sharks circled the boat at times, but he learned that staying calm and still was often the only way to avoid danger. Survival stopped being about courage or strength. It became routine. Wake up, find food, collect water, protect the boat, and repeat. As months passed, time lost its meaning. José stopped counting days and forgot what normal life felt like. His body grew weaker, his skin cracked from constant exposure to salt water and sun, and his weight dropped dangerously low. At night, he stared at the stars, trying to remember what land looked like. Sometimes the exhaustion became so overwhelming that he thought about dying, not because he wanted to, but because he was tired of fighting. Yet something inside him refused to give up. Not hope, not faith, but pure instinct. The same instinct that forces living beings to survive even when everything else is gone. Unbeknownst to José, ocean currents were slowly carrying his boat across the Pacific Ocean. From the coast of Mexico, across thousands of miles of open water toward the Marshall Islands. He had no map and no idea where he was going. All he knew was that if he stopped trying, he would die. After more than a year at sea, the water began to feel different. The waves changed, and the smell of the air shifted. Then, suddenly, the boat struck land. José collapsed onto the shore of a small island in the Marshall Islands. Local villagers found him barely alive, thin, sunburned, confused, and physically broken. When he told his story, many people didn't believe him. Doctors and media outlets questioned whether such a journey was even possible. But oceanographers later confirmed that the currents could indeed carry a small boat that far. The journey, as impossible as it sounded, was real. Salvador Alvarenga survived 438 days lost at sea. He didn't survive because he was extraordinary or because he had special training. He survived because he adapted, because he endured isolation, hunger, fear, and hopelessness without stopping. His story is not just about the ocean. It is about what happens when a human being is stripped of everything, comfort, certainty, and connection, and still chooses to live. The Pacific Ocean never showed him mercy, but it proved one terrifying truth. Even when the world disappears, the human will can still survive.